Hello, everybody. Come on in. We're talking about growing brave writers, and I'm so excited that you're here. So here's what we're going to do. Let me set up this training for you. Growing Brave Writers, this beautiful book, published today. So if you purchased it, you should have either received a copy in email through our PDF delivery system, or you will have received it as part of your bundle purchase. Beginning writers, emerging writers, middle school writers, high school writers, or college prep writers. That bundle exists in your Brave Writer account. So the first thing that I want to show you, because I think it's so critical to everybody feeling comfortable, is I want to show you how to log into your account. We're doing that now so that those of you who have to jump off early or need to tend to a baby or whatever will not have missed this most important content. So let me show you. And if you decide by the end of this to buy a bundle, you'll know where to log in. So the bundles are located in your Brave Writer account. Can you see bravewriter.com at the top here? And so where you're going to go is take your cursor to the right-hand corner. Now I'm already signed in, but it will say log into your account up in this right corner. And then you're going to click on the words my account. And in your case, you're going to see a window come up and you'll fill it out with your email address that you use to buy the product and a password. If you don't have a password yet, which many of you won't, hit reset password, create one, and then you'll be able to log into your account. These are the bundles. You will not see all of them because it's unlikely that you've bought all 5. But let's say you bought Emerging Writers, you'll see this little icon, this folder, and you'll also see the icon for the Dart. So in the bundle, you end up with Growing Brave Writers, a product like partnership writing, and the Dart. In Emerging Writers, you will pick up Growing Brave Writers and Partnership Writing. And inside the Dart, you will pick up this month's copy of the Dart. Okay, this is where you will find your programs. So we'll circle back to that at the end, but I just wanted you to see how to log in. Okay, so if you need help logging in, if for some reason the instructions aren't working for you, you can reach out to us at help@bravewriter.com and simply put urgent Brave Writer account login in the subject line, and we'll get right to you. We won't let time go by because we know how much you want to receive your products. Okay, so we're here to talk about growing brave writers. We're also going to talk about how to use this within our bundle program. And then I'm going to take your questions and answers about anything under the sun related to homeschooling and writing using our program. You can put those in the Q&A folder, or you can put them in the chat. And let's begin then by discussing why Brave Writer teaches writing the way that we do, because let's be honest, we're a little non-traditional. So Brave Writer's writing program was developed based on my experiences as a professional writer. Do any of you know this about me? So back in the 1990s, when I was in my 30s, so ages ago, I was breaking into the writing profession. I grew up with a mother who is a professional writer. By the way, she's written 75 books and she's 84 years old. So that's almost like a book a year, except she didn't start until she was almost 40. So imagine how much writing she's done. I grew up around publishing and had a really strong sense of query letters and pitching and agents, not because I knew how to do them, but because I had heard all the stories told. My mother also had an amazing bookshelf of all kinds of books to help you become a professional writer. She also taught writing at the University of California Extension Program at UCLA, UC San Diego, and more during her career. So my mom was my first role model. She was also the person that sort of introduced me to the publishing world. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I tried to break into writing. I ended up becoming a ghostwriter, a freelance writer, a magazine and book editor, and I worked in that profession for a number of years while I was homeschooling my kids. One of my notable jobs was I used to edit PhD dissertations for people trying to pass when they were giving their dissertations for the final review. And of course, I had no reason or business to think I was good at that. I just somehow knew that I had writing chops, and I understood what it took to create cogent, logical, structured, readable writing. So all through my 30s, I did that kind of work in addition to home educating my kids. When it came time to teach my kids to writing then, I just turned to my bookcases. I was reading people like Peter Elbow. I was reading people who understood writing like Anne Lamott or William Zinsser. And these writers opened my mind to how to engage a writer. How do you get someone to unstick their writing voice, their ideas? How do we help them create change in an original draft so that the writing is more interesting and powerful to read? These were the questions I was answering all the time for my kids. Along came a homeschooling friend, and she said, Julie, I know you're a ghostwriter, because I was working with people that she knew, and I know that you do this on the side. I don't know what to do about this writing program I have. It doesn't seem to work. Would you take a look at it? So I did. Not going to tell you the name because it's still around, but she brought me this big notebook, and I opened it up, and the first assignment was for students to write a descriptive paragraph. At the top of the page was a paragraph that was a model of what a descriptive paragraph should be, followed by criteria for the paragraph the student was to write. The criteria said things like, start with a topic sentence, add 4 supporting sentences, make sure you include a clincher, appeal to the 5 senses. And then there was this model paragraph that the student was supposed to read and emulate. So I read all of that. And then I looked at my friend and I said, Glenda, did you like the sample paragraph? She said, well, what do you mean? Did I like it? I said, when you read it, did you think to yourself, gosh, I wish there were a second paragraph? She said, no, I don't remember the paragraph. And then I took the notebook and I closed it. And I said to her, if the sample paragraph was so unremarkable that you didn't want there to be a second one and you don't remember it, why would you want your child to learn to write like that? And that was a surprise to her, because what she understood me to say is that boring writing, even though accurate to the instructions, is not worth the effort. And she's right. It's not. I've seen plenty of student papers get A's that were dull to read, that literally gave no one pleasure to be reading them. And yet the teacher went through and noted, oh, accurate punctuation, good use of spelling, followed the structure, and yet yawn to read it. What I know from understanding professional writing is this: people don't get paid if they can't write, unless you're a celebrity. Let's be honest. And those people hire ghostwriters, right? Just to make sure that their books are readable. In other words, powerful writing gets read. Graded writing that gets A's only gets evaluated. I'm going to say that again. Powerful writing gets read. Graded writing only gets evaluated. And my goal for you and your kids is for them to be powerful writers, that when they write something, it's not only good to read, you remember it. And they take pleasure in the idea that someone is reading their writing because they're so glad to connect with this reader. Imagine if your child woke up in the morning thinking, can't wait to get these thoughts in writing because I know someone's going to take pleasure in reading them, and that'll feel really good. I'm going to make my dad laugh. I'm going to make my brother read this with suspense and wonder how it's all going to turn out. I'm going to show off to my mom how much I know about this, game like Warcraft. In other words, writing can be as pleasurable and interesting to your child as speaking. And don't they follow you into the bathroom with all their amazing thoughts that they want you to hear? What would it be like if they understood that those thoughts deserved to be written and enjoyed by an interested audience? What if they knew that they weren't going to be evaluated so critically on their mechanics, but that they were going to be coaxed and encouraged to go further in their self-expression, no matter how they're doing in the mechanics? What would that be like? What would it be like to learn to revise as an act of play rather than an act of improvement? You know, so often the way we treat writing is a tightrope act. It's like you've got to walk this very narrow line. We've created all the criteria for you, supposedly to make it easier. And then you've got to hold all this criteria in your head while you're shrinking the thoughts that you have so that you spell every word correctly. Oh, better dumb down that hard word to spell and use an easy word. So that you use shorter sentences. Better dumb down that complex sentence because I don't know how to use commas and semicolons. Better dumb down the way I communicated. I'm not going to put in the dialogue because I don't really know how to use quotes. So I'll just write it in passive voice. Do you see what happens? If we focus on evaluation and accuracy as the goals of writing, we literally edit out the most interesting part of anyone's writing, which is their writing voice, that quirky sense of humor, their fresh insight, that parade of facts they love to give you, that relentless storytelling they can't stop sharing when you're taking a shower. All of that can be captured in writing, and they can learn the mechanics simultaneously, but without the requirement that they be perfect. So in Brave Writer, we start then by separating the mechanics of writing from original writing voice. We start by acknowledging that the writing process is less about accuracy and more about power. And we teach the mechanics using someone else's writing. That's why we use literature, copy work, dictation, because we're allowing kids to not self-identify with misspellings. We don't want them to be identified with their misspellings. Today, they've got spell check, grammar check. They can get you to double check. They can use Dragon software or voice to text. I'm not saying they shouldn't learn to spell, but spelling is not interesting. It's so not interesting a robot can do it. It's so not interesting that blind people can communicate in writing without seeing the spellings. It's so powerful that people with hand disabilities can still be writers. That's how little the mechanics matter. I remember one of my friends, he's a PhD in history. And when it was time for him to write his dissertation, this was back in the 1980s, he dictated the whole thing to a dictaphone and had a secretary type it up, and he paid for her to do that. He had dyslexia. He was tired. It was exhausting to fight the dyslexia while he was trying to craft this very powerful paper. When he turned that paper in, who got the doctorate? Was it the secretary who spelled, punctuated, and formatted the paper accurately? Or was it my friend whose writing the paper was? Who knows? Can you put it in the chat? Who got the doctoral degree? The secretary or the person who wrote the paper and thought about history in a new way? Obviously, the man. Everybody is agreeing. But the reason I ask you to even commit that to writing is that there's a part of us that still thinks it's really important that they know how to spell. So we teach that. We absolutely do. But it's more like a three-ring circus in Brave Writer. There is the mechanics that we teach and train through reading and copywork and dictation. There's the original writing voice, which we teach using the writing process. And then we bring those two together to accomplish writing assignments. Things like writing a haiku or a letter or a report or an essay. And we pick those projects that are developmentally scaled to that person's abilities at the time, so that we make sure we don't ask a third grader to write an academic essay. Their brains aren't even ready for that yet. Yes, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A folder, so we will get those absolutely answered by the end. So let's dive in then to Growing Brave Writers and understand what this manual does. And then we'll take a look at the bundles. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to look at Growing Brave Writers on your screen as well. And we'll go through this together. So hold on. So Growing Brave Writers, a friendly guide to writing with kids. Whether or not you write well, write bravely. That is the motto, the theme of this whole program. So to begin, of course, we have the table of contents. And what you'll notice right away is that there are chapters. And then under many of the chapters, you'll see activities. There's a reason for this. We want you to be able to keep track of what activities you're doing with your child and how they relate to the content of that chapter. Each of these chapters has a coaching guide. That means materials for you to read. Compared with the Writer's Jungle, we pared down the length of the coaching materials substantially so that you can read it over a cup of coffee within 5 to 10 minutes. The goal is to read that to orient you to the goals of the content of that activity. And then the activity itself is going to deliver the lesson. So you don't have to read the coaching material and do a lot of explaining to your children. You can then just dive into the activity and the activity itself will teach your kids. But now you'll understand how that operates. At the front of the book, we do have how to use this manual. This is there for you at any time that you need it as a reminder of how Growing Brave Writers works. So don't worry about remembering this or taking notes on this webinar because we have a recap for you right here. So here's chapter 1, the natural stages of growth in writing. And as I indicated before, we are coming at this from the writing life side of writing. A lot of times schools focus on scope and sequence, grade level expectations, age range. But the problem with that is each individual student is developing at their own pace. So whereas we might say most kids walk at about a year old, you'll notice that some kids walk at 9 months and others take their own sweet time and don't really start walking until 17 or 18 months. It doesn't mean that any of these kids won't eventually be walkers. It just means that their bodies and their brains are developing at different rates. That is also true with writing. So in Brave Writer, I have divided up the writing life into 6 stages of growth. Beginning writers, 0 to 7, and then followed by emerging writers. And we'll take a quick look at each of these. But what I want you to know is read this chapter first. Get oriented. See if you can guess or figure out where each of your children are on this developmental scale. We include age ranges as a courtesy, similar to what to expect of your toddler when you see that it says, you know, they'll start holding a fork at whatever age. It's just a guideline, but it's not a rigorously meant to be rigorously applied. So what I've done to help you evaluate where your kids are is I've included, you know, your child is entering this phase when, and a process overview for each of the developmental stages. The third one is middle school writers building confidence. And then the fourth one is the high school writers experimenting with forms. And then finally, college prep writers will be the last one that you work with. And then finally, there are adult writers, fluency and competency. This is once they fly the coop, once they're out of college and living their own lives. All right. So chapter 1 is natural stages of growth. Chapter 2 then is where the writing program really begins. And for many of you, you might be unfamiliar with what we call the Brave Writer lifestyle. This is the language-rich environment that supports becoming a fluent, captivating writer. In the Brave Writer lifestyle, I have leaned heavily on people like Maria Montessori or Charlotte Mason or other aspects of learning that are immersive and allow for there to be a dialogue between art and nature and movies and read-alouds. Inside the Brave Writer lifestyle, we have several practices we consider core to the development of a young writer. So the first one is reading aloud, And I've made each of these practices their own sheets within this product. Why did I do that? In case you want to print them individually. That way, let's say you have a notebook that is all your Brave Writer lifestyle activities, and you want to keep track of all the books you read aloud this year, or a list of books your kids are reading. You could print this, put it in your notebook, and then add pages from what your kids are writing or reading, and keep track and a list, and it's all together. Then at the end of the year, if you're in a state like Ohio, where there is a year-end evaluation, or you're part of a charter school, you've got the actual lesson that goes with the work that you did. And it just creates a very seamless way for you to share this with interested parties. So each of these activities are on their own pages. The second one, of course, is poetry tea time. Who doesn't love that? The third one is movies and television. And I keep them very simple. For some of you, you've probably read my book, The Brave Learner. If you haven't, I do recommend it. We talk about seeing a subject differently and then staging the home to support that. So I've structured some of these in that kind of categorization because I know it's familiar to you and it will be helpful in your own practice. The fourth practice is the arts, art, music, and theater. And then finally, the fifth practice is nature. And of course, we're talking about nature study, nature journaling, all those delightful experiences. So those 5 practices really build the core foundation for a language-rich lifestyle for your family. The third chapter is called Jot It Down. And for those of you who've been around Brave Writer for a while, you may know that we often recommend jotting down as a way to help your kids become familiar with what it's like to be read. In other words, they don't have to do the transcription. They can talk and you can be the secretary. So we decided to include that in this program to make sure that you realize it's a very valid aspect of the writing life. Inside this project, then, we have an activity called Jot It Down, and I want to draw your attention to the age range. A lot of us think jotting things down is for children between 0 and about 7 or 8, but my view is a little different. Jotting down words that other people say gives those words value and helps unblock stuck writers. I remember being in high school when I was trying to write my essay to get into college. And my mother asked me to do a draft. And I wrote this very wooden draft. You know, I want to go to UCLA because. And my mom said, okay, Julie, let's start over. Close your eyes. I'm going to sit at the typewriter. And I want you to paint a picture for me of the life you imagine you'll have once you're done being at UCLA. And so I closed my eyes and I just started narrating that I would live on the beach and have an Irish setter, and I would be in a sitcom and I would be memorizing my lines in my little beach house because I was going to major in acting. Obviously, I grew up in LA. And I did not do any of that. But guess what? That is the essay that I sent to UCLA. And it was my mother jotting down my fantasy and then us honing it together when I was 16 years old already. I share this with you because I want you to remember that when we are helping kids, there is no support that is overreaching. Your children, your teens, even my editor, even my graduate school professors have employed this method. I dare say, if you get in an argument with your significant other, you might stop arguing, grab a sheet of paper and write down what that person is saying and value it. They'll be shocked and they'll ask why you're doing it. And you might say back, you know what? We're in an argument and I realized I'm not really listening. I want to listen. So I'm going to jot down all your reasons for why we should not go on vacation this summer. And then take it seriously. And then ask for time to review it. You'll be amazed at how quickly that transforms the dynamic. Jotting down is an act of respect, and it offers your family a way to get words into writing. So One of the things that I offer in this program that's different than the Writer's Jungle is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I numbered and lettered the heck out of this thing for all of you who are asking for very readable, very clear instructions. So that is here for you. If you notice, number 9 talks about jotting down a teen's oral language so that actually you can keep track of the ideas they have, the controversies they care about, so that when it's time to write an essay, you can actually pull out things you've chatted with them about and give them a head start, a jumping off point. Remember when you said you were mad at EA Games because they retired version X of X game? Let's discuss that more. That might be a really great idea for your essay. One of the aspects of this program that I'm so excited about is that many of you told me you're checklist people. What I've discovered with most homeschooling parents is we've got 2 kinds of parents, and they both wish they had the other temperament. So you've got your very type A checklist organized person who wishes she knew how to relax. And then you've got your relaxed, less organized, more go with the flow person who wishes she was good at structure. If you are either of those type A or type B parents, go ahead and tell us in the chat. Are you more the kind who wants to check things off that you got them done and wish that you could be more relaxed? Or are you the relaxed person who wishes you were better at keeping a checklist? Type B, type A. Let's see who's going to win in this little context. A, B. Nothing makes me happier than a list. B, relax, wishing I was A. I swing from A to B. I want to relax. Okay. I love this. So what I realized is checklists are actually for self-esteem, aren't they? They're to help you feel like you've accomplished something. So here's my solution. I am trying to meet you both in the middle. So look at this checklist for self-esteem. You've read the coaching guide and the Jot It Down activity. Okay, that's an activity. Check. Stayed alert, listening for a great Jot It Down moment. Oh, stayed alert. Well, that's different. That's a little bit more like, oh, in the day of living, I've got to sort of be aware. Caught a child in the act of self-expression. Managed to scribble some of it down. Managed to scribble some of it down is a lot better than if it had said, jotted it down, typed it on the computer, right? You can jot things down anywhere. I've done the back of a napkin, the back of an envelope that's on my counter. I've written them on, back then we didn't have smartphones, but I would write them on my computer, like open a Word document. Yes, Marcy said she does it in her phone. You can jot it down even on a whiteboard if you have nothing else available. Just jot it down. Read the writing to an interested family member, showed interest by asking good follow-up questions, read it again at a later date. The checklist for self-esteem is meant to meet both of you in the middle. The last brand new thing that's in the Growing Brave Writers is the Common Core and Academic Standards support. So this is for those of you who have a nagging sense that you love what we do in Brave Writer, but you don't know how it fits in with typical school. Like maybe you have a charter school educational specialist who keeps asking you if you have, worked on recitation or understand the value of narrative and self-expression, right? Or maybe you've got an evaluator that you've got to show everything to at the end of the year. Or maybe you even just have a spouse who would like to know for sure that all of this adds up to what traditional school values. I've created a word bank in every single activity, and then I've built some sample narrative sketches where you can just swap out the word student, child, or teen with your child's name. And now you'll have a narrative that includes some of this language and makes it really easy for those evaluators to see that the work you're doing actually leads to the outcome that you desire. I want to skip to the one in the communication game because I love the example there. So this is chapter 4. This game was inside the Writer's Jungle. Much of the writing is similar. I did edit quite a bit. We include some sizable quotes when you need them from people who've also given us feedback. But here is what the communication game activity looks like. So it's for all ages. Participants are adults and children. If you'll notice, there's purpose, overview, tools, how to set the tone. How to set the tone, people. That's equally important to the tools, isn't it? And then I divided the game into 2 phases, and I've given you some illustrations so that it's nice and clear what you're doing. Introductory remarks, examples to share, all the way through, trying to give you practical handholds that make it so easy to follow the instructions, right? Ignore that. That is a mistake. That's not on your copy. This is just my copy before we sent it back for one last fix. So the checklist for self-esteem here, I just want you to see what else it includes. Gathered the tools, read the coaching guide, considered the variations before playing the game, played as, tried a variation. Okay, look at these. Popped corn, shared about what we all learned, laughed, hugged someone spontaneously, wrote a narrative sketch. Do you see where I'm going here? We're trying to give you some handholds so that you can see what you're doing with your kids. Here's the word bank for the communication game. Metaphor, simile, powerful description, precise detail, accurate depiction, analogy, comparison, introductory remarks, clarification, etc. So now here's the sample. My student learned the value of introductory remarks in writing, as well as the power of precise detail, modifying language based on audience, and how to use analogy, comparison, simile, metaphor, and keenly observed details to communicate clearly. My student also discovered the role of editorial feedback and the value in revising an original piece of writing, thought, multiple times with the reader in mind in order to most effectively communicate. Finally, my student also grew as a reader, learning to pay attention to when writing doesn't convey what it should, learning how to give feedback to help improve a writer's communication. So can you see how the narrative sketch may also reassure you that what you've done is actually building skills in writing? So it has several levels that it works to help and support you. All right. So the next chapters are all similarly designed. We have a coaching guide, and then we have the activity. And the activities have lots of detail. For those of you who've done the keen observation activity, this is a printable so that when you are observing and asking all the different questions, you have a little sheet where you can write in what your kids are observing, and it's all easily organized and categorized for you. You can print this out, put it on a clipboard, and you'll have so much ease of use. And there you go. Okay, I am going to skip ahead now, and we're going to look at the chapter on revision. Chapter on free writing is very similar to what was in the Writer's Jungle, but it's much longer. We have a 9-week free or an 8-week free writing practice, and those free writing practices include response styles. These are response styles we use in our teaching. So during week 1, you're going to learn how to appreciate the effort that went into the writing. During weeks 2 to 4, you're going to learn how to appreciate the content and the effort. And then in weeks 5 to 8, you're going to learn how to appreciate the content and effort while asking curious questions, which is the foundation for revision. Do you see how that builds? So in our free writing experience, we don't just tell you what to do, we teach you how to do it. Free writing is the core of the program. You will love it. You will love it. Okay, let me get done here. There is not a new version of Help for High School. The only new part of Help for High School is the cover. I just saw that question and I thought I would answer it. So if you've got it from 2005, you're just fine. Okay, so here is another of those checklists for self-esteem and another sketch a narrative. All right, so here's the part I really want to talk to you about. the revising of writing. How many of you have kids who say they hate revision? Can I see a show of hands or comments in the chat? How many of you say, oh, there you go. I see those 3 raised hands. Yeah. Do you have kids who are like, oh my gosh, mom, can I just be done? Yeah, those hands are going up. I see it. That's right. Why is that? Why do kids hate revision? I'll tell you why. They just put out this huge chunk of effort. They literally did what they think is the most and best work they can do. And then we turn around and say, not good enough, got to improve it. Let's fix it right now. But that is not what revision is. Revision is imparting new vision to the original piece of writing. Over the last 22 years, what I've discovered working with teens and junior high students in particular is that if they are invited to change the original, they're more willing to do that than to improve it. Here's why. When we teach them to play with the original writing, to do a little violence to it, to mess it up and even make it worse in the name of revising, they start to lose that death grip that they have on the free write. You know, that feeling that all the good words are already out of me. I can't find any more. Instead, we say, yeah, I know you got all the good words out. Now let's mess it up. Let's change it a little bit. Let's see what happens if we just get wacky and throw in something unexpected. What I've noticed is as kids get comfortable playing with their drafts, changing them in wacky ways, they start to discover that they crack open new power in the original. And what that does is it sets them up to be ready to do revision that improves the writing, not just changes it. So let me show you what I mean by this. We've got 2 key ideas in the revision process. One is called low stakes revision. And the goal of low stakes revision is to play with the writing. So we go through 4 strategies, taking the original writing and turning it into a lie, changing the writing voice, creating a revision board, and scrambling the storyline. When I talk about turning the original writing into a lie, I'm not trying to train your kids to be liars, but imagine just reversing each sentence. I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like. So let's say your child wrote, I woke up early in the morning and ate a big plate of delicious pancakes. How many words will a child change in order to turn that into a lie? Could it be, my sister woke up late in the morning and ate a small bowl of delicious strawberries? That changes a few things. But couldn't your child go even further? Could that child say, an emergency room nurse went to bed late in the evening and didn't eat any of her leftovers for dinner? In other words, there's already some revising decisions that have to be made. How much to change, what impact those changes have on the original meaning. Here's another example. When I taught this to a group of students at a conference, I had them do a free write all about the morning before they met with me. And so here's an example of what one of the students wrote. I hated getting up so early for the conference. I had to eat the stale cereal in the hotel lobby next to a little kid who screamed the whole time. So I asked her to lie. And this is what she came back with. And I want you to just listen for a minute and ask yourself, is it a lie? Okay, so I want you to listen. I just love getting up early at conferences. It's my singular joy to eat stale cereal in hotel lobbies, particularly when I get to sit next to a darling little kid who enjoys exercising his vocal cords by screaming the whole time. Isn't it interesting how the lying version communicates even more forcefully that the narrator hated breakfast that morning? And that's one of the joys of this strategy. Sometimes it unearths snark or sarcasm or a way of looking at an idea that comes from another lens that's more powerful and unexpected. So you get to play with this with your kids. I'm going to skip the other ones and let you discover those when you read it yourself. The other kind of revision is called high stakes revision. High stakes revision is reserved for a writing project that starts with an assignment like pick a topic, write an essay, and ends with an edited, finished draft. There are two kinds of high stakes revision that we recommend. There's a very easy process we call the magic revision questions list. And this is for a quick revision. You take a free write, you want to improve it a little or change it a little, and you want to finish. So you ask some questions of the free write to draw out a little bit more writing, but you're not trying to rewrite the whole thing in a dramatic way. So you might ask, what grosses you out? Is there a story from your own experience or from a book that relates to your topic? How are you changed because you studied this subject? Can you think of a picture that reminds you of this topic? Why? What would you call a movie based on your findings, etc.? These are ways to revise, but they're very simple. They're very directed, and it helps your child just knock loose maybe some additional detail that didn't show up in the original free write. But for those pieces where you're starting with an assignment, like in one of our products or one of the classes your kids are taking at a co-op, and you go from the writing assignment all the way to the end, this is called the soup to nuts revision process. And I've got this little card you can print and laminate to remind you of the steps. And then all of the steps key correlate with the numbers and the letters. So you can just look for the directions that you need and don't remember. And you will work through each of these steps with your kids. And there is so much help and support here. And what you're going to find out actually is that revision isn't that hard. You can literally walk through it step by step like you did everything else in your child's life. Okay. So once you get done with revision, it's time for editing. And this is the polishing of the final draft where we finally address some of the missing punctuation, some of the misspellings. And I understand that this is the moment you've been waiting for. So I like to take some of the pressure off. Not every piece of writing has to be edited. However, if we're going to edit, there are two key practices to try. The first one is what we call easy edits, which takes one pair of eyes. This is training your child to be responsible to turn in a well copy edited piece of writing at the end of the process. So I give you some tips and tricks that help your child take responsibility. We famously use a note card practice that I explain. Yes, you can revise and edit with an 8-year-old, but you will want to use the easy edits practice, and you will only want to do it for just a few of their writing projects in a year. Most of them you will not ever edit. We even give you some space to notice what is missing in their writing that is targeted in future copy work and dictation so that you'll have that for editing. The second activity in the editing chapter then is 2 pairs of eyes. This is where you involve a second person. Guess what? All writers have more than 1 pair of eyes on their writing. It is absurd to think that a student should turn in a paper that no one else reads. It proves nothing. We always want a second editor, and that will be you or a sibling or a college roommate eventually. So we start that training early so they understand how to work with a second person so that the editor can alert them to some misspellings or questions about punctuation. And then that writer has the opportunity to make an authorial decision about whether or not to take that advice. We also give you some ideas of what to do once you've finished the writing. Checklist, Common Core. All right. So that gets you through the core of the program. Chapter 10 is just a little essay to remind you that writing is about preserving the person that is your child in written form. It's like a photograph of the mind life of your child. It matters. It is not only about getting grades and getting into college. Finally, chapter 11 helps you understand how to use this program if you have kids who are in traditional school, if you have a homeschool co-op, or you want to use writing across the curriculum. So I'm going to scroll to that one because that's really exciting. In homeschool co-ops, I created a guideline that you can print for all the students in your class. And I recommend having this read every week and have each one of these items read by a different person. And by the end, your students are really going to understand how to treat writing. For instance, I say, when we do express our thoughts about someone's writing, the goal is to find what works in it. Notice what made you laugh or think. Identify a great word or a vivid scene. Pay attention to the ideas or story, and then pay a compliment. The next one says, writer's block is ordinary. There will be days you don't feel like writing or find it difficult to write. On those days, let me know. We have options. You can read, finger knit, or we can pair you with one of the teachers who will jot down your thoughts for you, etc. Finally, we recommend writing as the key to understanding any school subject. And Brave Writer gives you so many places where you can use other subjects with our program. So for instance, if you have young children, we teach history through the quill, through elementary writing, telling tales. We have a Jot It Down program that helps you with animals and nature appreciation and art. For the 8 to 10 set, when we look at history and geography, we've got online classes and we have products that have writing projects right inside of them. All of these are possible for you to use to complete your homeschool program within the framework of writing and Brave Writer. So this is a really treasured part of the program for those of you who are always asking us these questions. I am going to go ahead and look at your questions in the folder to ensure that we get to them, and then we will attack the bundles. All right, here we go. How do we transition from kids sharing their writing ideas verbally and parents scribing to encouraging them to getting their ideas on paper or computer themselves? The beauty of Growing Brave Writers is I actually help you answer that question. Free writing is the place it begins, and that is an entire chapter that could take you almost a semester if you do everything in that chapter. So there is a transition, and it is guided for you inside of Growing Brave Writers. That's also true inside the partnership writing program. We talk about it in there as well. I'm struggling to get beyond copywork, dictation, and free writing to projects that take more than a day or so and editing. I'm not sure how to make the step into longer writing pieces, including editing. He has a lot of free writes that are full of his writing voice. Yeah, Growing Brave Writers is going to help you do that, because now you will set aside time and then you're going to pick a revision strategy with your child. Are you going to do one of the low stakes revisions? Are you going to pick one project this year and do the soup to nuts revision process and just mark it out? Tell your child, we're going to pick one and we're going to pick it by November, and we're going to keep all your writing in a folder. And then when November comes, that's the one we're going to do. And we're going to go through it and be patient and experience this process. A lot of times when parents tell me that they don't know how to do revision, they're mostly intimidated, but I have broken it out now step by step for you. You don't need to be intimidated. There's no guesswork here. You can literally go 1, 2, 3, and you are going to know what to do. And then give yourself time. Don't do other writing projects. Take a break from copywork and dictation. Really give yourself to the revision experience. I teach a mixed ability co-op class of 3rd to 5th graders, and they cycle with me for 3 years. Would I be able to use this with each ability range? Yep. Also, would I be able to use this in consecutive years with the same students? The processes can be done multiple times, and we recommend that. But what I would recommend in a co-op class is that once your students understand this, then you're going to want to use building confidence, or you might want to use partnership writing. It would really depend on the activities, and you can determine which one of these is best for your students by looking at the table of contents. But these would be perfect opportunities to build on after your students are good with Growing Brave Writers. That's what I'd recommend. How does Brave Writer align with state writing standards? Well, that's the whole point of my Common Core section, is that I went through and I looked at scope and sequences and state standards, and I used the language of those places and mapped it into the projects inside Growing Brave Writers. So yeah, we do everything. We do everything. We just don't do it the way schools do it. The way we do it is different, but we achieve the best outcomes. I'm telling you this not to brag, but because I believe in it so completely. Our students do amazingly well in college and the workplace because by the time they get there, they are so in command of their writing voices. They so understand what the processes are to create a good writing project that college is unintimidating to them. And they perform well. They feel comfortable and competent and confident when they write. I'm so guilty of thinking spelling is more important than it probably is, but I have noticed my daughter gets frustrated at not being able to read her own handwriting. Like you said, the effort it takes her is grand. I have started short spelling lessons with a program, but I wonder if it's worth our time. Here's what I recommend, especially for a 10-year-old with dysgraphia or dyslexia. Check out Rooted in Language. Rita Savasco is the owner of that company. She's worked with me for 2 decades. She taught my own dysgraphic son. Some of her practices are so easy to adopt, and they will give you the tools and skills you need so that you're not just circling the drain all the time with inadequate tools. Worth the investment. You will not be sorry. Do I need a separate grammar program? All right, let's talk about grammar. So Brave Writers bundles have multiple programs in them. So for the youngest, we have Growing Brave Writers, which is all about learning to write, correct? And then we have our literature program, the Quill, which teaches early literacy in reading, writing, and mechanics, and mathematics, okay? That's what this one does. And then we have a product that we call Jot It Down for the bundle. We're going to do this for each of the bundles. So we may as well dive in now because that's the question that came up. How do these 3 programs fit together, you ask, right? You're looking at me like, uh-oh, Julie, I don't know which one to use first. I don't know which one is the one that my child needs. Not to worry. I recorded for each bundle level about a 15 to 20 minute audio file that tells you how to use your bundle. And we've created a downloadable PDF called How to Use Your Bundle that encapsulates that understanding. But here is the basic rubric. When your kids are young and they don't know how to read and write yet, we got to start with literacy. We've got to start with setting the foundation so that when you teach them phonics, they're going to really take to it and learn. We don't want to miss, though, the opportunity to capture their writing voice. So Jot It Down is a program of activities, writing exercises and projects, that only require your child to speak, and you'll do the transcribing. So these 2 programs are what you're going to use this year, because until your child can read and handwrite, they won't quite be ready to do Growing Brave Writers. So if you buy the Beginning Writers Bundle, what are you doing? You're buying like 2 years worth of program. And if you've got multiple kids, that's a lot of program and it covers a lot of kids. So that is amazing. You know, if you're looking at buying a bundle, it's going to be non-consumable, last for more than 1 child, and will last more than a year. Okay, so that's the Beginning Writers Bundle, these 3 products. The Emerging Writers Bundle is going to use, to teach the mechanics of writing and literature, is going to use something called the DART. The DART is our product that teaches students how to write the mechanics of writing, punctuation, spelling, grammar, literary devices. And these products are paired with a book that you will read aloud. The books are not included. You do have to get the books, but these come out once a month. And the purpose of the DART or the Quill or the other literature programs I'm going to tell you is to handle teaching those mechanics using someone else's writing. You do this right away. The Quill, the DART, start with that in August. You're going to do it every month. You won't take any breaks from it. In the second month, you might start with partnership writing. This product on the first sort of semester of projects builds from Jot It Down. It's for kids who are just able to do a little bit of their own writing, but aren't doing it all fluently by themselves. So it's really easy to break into. So you're going to do that during the first semester. And then once your kids get comfortable moving a pencil, maybe in the second semester, you'll add in growing brave writers, and you'll do those activities until they feel a little bit challenging. And then you come back to partnership writing. In other words, growing brave writers focuses on the writing process, and partnership writing focuses on writing projects. Some of those writing processes help you do the writing projects. So that's what you're going to determine, but I give you lots of detail, so it shouldn't be too difficult to understand. So the DART teaches the mechanics. Partnership writing gives you writing projects to do with your child, partnering together. Growing Brave Writers gives you processes to help you complete writing assignments, writing projects. I keep saying that wrong. Sorry. The next level is called Middle School Writers. And that program involves Growing Brave Writers, the Arrow, and Building Confidence. Okay. So the Arrow is our mechanics and literature program for 11 and 12-year-olds. And you will start this in August, and there is one every single month of the year from August through May. And you do these every month, and you will get the books at Amazon or the library or any bookstore of your choice. And this level, the middle school, you will start with Growing Brave Writers right away, and you will complete this entire book. And when it's done, you'll go into Building Confidence, which are all the writing projects that make use of the writing processes that are in Growing Brave Writers. So 1, 2, 3, just like that. The other two levels, high school writers and college prep writers, they have their own mechanics and literature guides. The Boomerang is for early high school, 13 to 14. The Slingshot is for 15 to 18-year-olds. And they make use of a completely different program, Help for High School. And this is written to your teen, and they can be done simultaneously. There's no gap whatsoever. So to review, the strategy is this. You will use the mechanics and literature programs every month that they're available, starting in August. For the youngest crowd, it will be the Quill and Jot It Down first, followed by Growing Brave Writers. The only one that's a little bit less obvious is emerging writers. You're going to start with the DART, and then you are going to use partnership writing for a semester, add in Growing Brave Writer in the spring, and then return to partnership writing and finish it after that. And I have that all written out for you. So it should be very, very clear. As far as needing a separate grammar program, you do not. We teach it. That said, some people really enjoy having a separate grammar program just as an opportunity to teach grammar using a sentence diagramming method, or like I used Winston grammar. It was just a method to use, but we have really turned these into robust grammar tools. Your kids will learn so much grammar from us. It's not a requirement anymore. How do we know how long a free write or essay should be? Are there guidelines by age? There is no right answer to that, actually. Now, in the essay instructions in Help for High School, we talk about starting with the 5-paragraph essay. So that is a guideline, but free writes are free. You write as much as you can in however much the time length is that you give your students. Some assignments come with criteria, so that will tell you. But for the most part, it's not a good idea to predetermine length. It's better to see what the content is on offer and then discover if there's more writing that can be added and done to either beef it up, or if it's adequately covered, whatever the topic is. Should this take a full year, or is it best stretched over 2? If so, how many lessons each week and how long? Would you complete it once and then go through it again? Okay, so for Growing Brave Writers, each of the activities can take about a week to 2 weeks. And you will know, like when you get to the 8-week free writes, 8 weeks. Then when they suggest doing it again, if your kids aren't ready for revision, that could be another 8 weeks. So I want you to sort of let go of the idea that there is a pace you have to take. Rather, see it as a weekly activity. And the same thing with the DART, the Arrow, the Boomerang. You're going to read aloud every day. And then once a week, 15, 30 minutes, you're going to do the activities for that week. So we expect you to spend between 60 and 90 minutes a week doing your writing. A week, not per day. Please do not tire out your writers. Less is more. And we give you so many great activities. Some of them are just super fun and they'll take an hour, but you just do it one day and you do it one day during the week. Would you use a separate program for spelling? Spelling for 9-year-olds is atrocious. I haven't met a 9-year-old who's a great speller. They've only been at it for a year. Even 12-year-olds have really poor spelling. So if you do copy work and dictation, by the time your kids are 14, 15, you're going to see that, oh, they actually can spell now. And they're actually doing it pretty naturally. So I don't see the need for an additional spelling program. We really believe in this stuff. It actually works. My 9-year-old always wants to keep her free writing story going and going, but then never finishes and doesn't want to go back to it. How can I guide her to free write within a scope that she can manage, completing the story in 1 to 2 writing sessions? Okay, she has a different value than you do. Let's level that one right away. Let's say your child loves to write and they're spending a ton of time writing, but you never see a beginning, middle, and an end. And you're like, I'm frustrated by this. I want you to think back to when your child was 5, 6, 7, and they were playing pretend. Do you remember that? They like to be a dog or Robin Hood or whatever. So they put on the clothes or they crawl around on all fours. And then all of a sudden their favorite TV show comes on and they get up and they stop playing. At that moment, did it ever dawn on you, gosh, I'm really bugged that she didn't finish the story she was acting out? Have you ever had that thought? Gosh, I wish her play would have a beginning, middle, and an end. Did anyone ever have that thought when their kids were playing dress-up clothes? Nope. When a child writes for pleasure, it's dress-up clothes. They're play acting. And they only want to write about the one thing that came to them in that moment. They're not thinking of it as a writing assignment where they're learning how to craft the narrative of a story. They're like, oh, that one scene in Star Wars was so funny. I want to write it. And then they sit down and they write it. And then they're done. And then we come back and say, well, where's the ending? And they're like, well, I'm over it. I play acted that scene using the keyboard or my hand. When your kids are little, they embody the stories. When they get to 10, 11, and 12, they've discovered through the great home education they've had that writing is another way to play act. And they're grown up now. So they're not going to necessarily put on the dress-up clothes and stage a play in the backyard, but they want to inhabit the story a little longer. So they write it and they live in that little imaginary world the same way they built a set of Legos into, you know, the castle where the battle took place. So let it go. If you want to teach beginning, middle, and end, use the revision process for a free write your child selects because they're willing to learn that skill. Don't ruin their joyful writing by turning it into a writing assignment. Make sense? All right, cool. How would you schedule this for the school year? We give you a recommended program. And in fact, in some of our products, we even have like a model of what the calendar could look like. I'll show you in Building Confidence what one looks like. So some of our products, some are not this detailed, but some of them are. This one is. But really, the way I like to think about things is we give you stuff to do by month and by week. And then you fit it in according to what works for your life. I'm never going to tell you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because some of you have co-ops on Monday, some on Wednesday. Some of you do 3 days a week. Some of you do 5 days a week. Some of you do year round. Some of you don't. It's just giving you a schedule just makes you feel bad. It's just a way to fail. So I don't do that, but you'll be able to plan this very easily. All right, let's see. I have 2 elementary students who are brand new to Brave Writer. Do I start the 6-year-old on the quill and jot it down? Do I start the 8-year-old on the Dart and partnership? In both cases, when do I know it is a good time to move over to Growing Brave Writers? So for a 6 and 8-year-old, let me ask you this question, Gwen. Are they both reading yet? If the 6-year-old is not reading yet and the 8-year-old is, I think I would start with the quill and Jot It Down. And then I would buy an occasional dart for the 8-year-old. So I would focus a lot on the quill and Jot It Down because they're both going to get so much out of that. But if you want to like nurture and nourish the reading and handwriting skills of the 8-year-old, you could do a dart like every 3 months, or one in one semester and one in the next semester. You're going to be astounded at how amazing the quill is. And Jot It Down is perfect for both of them. And then Growing Brave Writers, just save it for next year. You don't even need it yet. You could use that in the coming year when you have a 7 and a 9-year-old, which would be perfect, just perfect. Okay, I have the Jot It Down and partnership writing. This seems to be the step-by-step that makes sure we are moving towards writing, not just moving through activities. Am I understanding? You sure are. That is exactly right. With a very reluctant 10-year-old, how would I use DART, Jot It Down, and Growing Brave Writers together? So the DART every month, and you're going to read aloud, and you're going to spend 1 day a week doing DART activities. Then you are going to start with that 10-year-old with, you know what? I'm just going to pop something in here. Is this 10-year-old a boy? If the 10-year-old's a boy, I know I'm being very gendered right now, but this is something I've just observed to be true. 10-year-olds who are boys really love partnership writing. There are so many great activities in there. It starts with secret codes, which they just love. So I would probably do DART, partnership writing, and Growing Brave Writers, get the emerging bundle, and then follow the how to use this bundle, and you'll be perfect. You'll be perfect. Okay, I think we've got all of those questions. I'm very pleased. Yes, for those of you who have the Writer's Jungle, it's still a very practical tool. It has served our families for 22 years. You are not in any way deficient if you use it. It's just that Growing Brave Writers has additional material and a much better format, right? So if you want that additional material and format, then go ahead and pick it up. Join us. We would love to have you. If you would like a bundle and you already bought Growing Brave Writers, you can email us at help@bravewriter.com, and we will send you an invoice for the balance and give you that bundle discount that you're looking for. Oh, here's a question. If you've never used the writing program, do you recommend starting with Jot It Down with a 9-year-old? Visually impaired, learning Braille, figuring out, oh yes, perfect. Yes, Jot It Down for your 9-year-old will be ideal. You guys will have so much fun this year. Good job. Thank you, thank you, thank you everyone for making this a really, really fun launch. And we are here for you. If you're in Brave Learner Home, which is a benefit of purchasing a bundle, you can ask any questions at any time on our discussion board, and our trained paid staff will answer them and help you stay connected to the products and writing. It's really, our program is easy to use. The reason that people think it isn't is they're not used to it. Once you make the paradigm shift in your brain that this is a better way to write, it's going to click into place. You'll be like, I get it. Okay. So you'll get it. I promise. We would not be the successful company we are if it was impossible to use. All right, everybody. Have a great day.